Welcome back. And so from politics now, we turn our attention to the environment. And by now, many Nigerians, particularly those in the Southwest, know that the people of, these axes, Isheri, Agility, Ikorodu, they receive a yearly visitor. And it's not as a result of the rain. It is as a result of water release from the Oyan Dam. And this is the time of the season of the year when that yearly visitor comes. What is the enduring solution to this flood challenge, peculiar flood challenge? Because this goes far back in time to, many years ago when they began experiencing this particular challenge. So joining us to have this conversation this morning, we have Mr. Yemi Afolabi, Chairman, OPIC Meridian Park Residents Association. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning.
He joins us here in our Lagos studio. And we also have Mr. Olanrewaju Smith, is the Secretary, Lagos Ogun River Basin Communities Association. Thank you so much for joining us, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
So I'm going to start with you, Mr. Smith. It's just to do a check because the flood water began to be released last week, I believe, and we know that by now there's been an increase in the water level. So what is it like in your communities? How are residents holding up?
Very good. Thank you very much for your question. The flood water has been released. They've started release since March, not last week. It is the rate of release that changed. And as far back as 2 weeks ago, as on the 12th, from the release from Dr. Ashiru, the MD/CEO of Ogun River Basin, they've released 1,482 million cubic, which is about 1.482 billion cubic year to date. And that was at a rate of discharge of about 208 cubic meters per second, which translates to roughly about almost 18 million per day. Now, the Ogun River can take within the region of about, say, 20 maximum flow capacity, because it's not only on your dam that is a tributary. You have about other 52 tributaries downstream. Now, what happens when you exceed that number from which is the singular point source of large excessive volume discharge into the Ogun River? You have a situation whereby it spills over its bank at the floodplain. So between last Saturday, I watched your program. The director, Dr. Ashiru, very pragmatic. He came and said, year to date, they've released 1.7 billion. Which means between
billion now, not million.
No, billion. Yes, it's either you say 1,700 million cubic, which is the same as 1.7 billion. So
from when to when?
Between the 12th and the 19th, and that's the problem.
October.
Yes, that's 7 days. They were releasing an average of over 30 million cubic daily. Last year, it was only 2 days.
Did that surpass the promised measure of release?
No. You see, the promised measure of release they were doing before, it was in the region of 18 million. Now you increased to 30. What would you get? The bank will be overflown. Ogun River cannot take it. It overflowed into the communities. The channel the Ogun State government did, which even made us to be resilient till this point. And that's kudos to the Ogun State government and the Ministry of Environment, Dr. Engineer Oresonya. If not for that internal drainage, we would have been submerged weeks back. So 30 million cubic over 7 days, that came to, because when you do the arithmetic, it's about 215 million that was released within 7 days, which comes to about 30 point something. That is enormous. And because the channel, Ogun River channel, cannot take that, it overflowed into the communities. And that was why you saw the surge and everybody started complaining that the leaders we were being bombarded with calls. Communities were ransacked. Fine, where I live, my community is not so impacted because we have adequate measures in place. But how do you feel when you look to your left and to your right, communities around you, where you see people that are vulnerable, and they were being submerged, and we can't even look to their faces. So these are the challenges why we said we've seen the problem. It is for us to now start talking about the solutions, because last year The governor of Ogun State, His Excellency Dapo Abiodun, promised us, we had this engagement right at OPIC. He promised us that this year, within this year, that he was coming to do the internal drainage. We live in a floodplain, but that is immaterial because Venice is on water, Holland is on water, several cities are on water. But you put adequate infrastructure in place, which is your drainage.
All right, we'll speak to the adequate infrastructure, but let's also hear from Mr. Afolabi now. Tell us about the impact on your communities.
Thank you very much. My estate is down the Channels TV Avenue, the Meridian Park over there. And from your studio here, you can see that the access right from Lunex is no longer accessible. So that tells you how much you see over there. So my estate is like one of the worst hit in the sense that as at this morning, it must be at waste level. Now, this thing started between Monday and Tuesday last week. And we felt Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, it was still looking okay. But between Thursday and Friday, it went so high that every unit there is flooded. Now, let me just take you back a little. We moved into the estate in 2018, late 2018. 2019, there was massive flood everywhere. 2020, surprisingly, we did not experience anything, no flooding. But from 2021 to date, every year, we've had to evacuate from the estate, relocate for 1 or 2 weeks every year. So what happened last year and what happened this year, it's just a matter of pattern. That is the difference. Last year, it came heavily within 24 hours. This year, they've been releasing for the past 1 week, and it has been going higher every day. So I went out there today, and I still asked, and I was told that it has gone up again. So it's been very, very terrible at my end of the estate. And when you look at the estate is neither close to the river nor close to the canal. The nearest canal is about 1 kilometer after my estate. Now, another thing is that what happened in 2020, what did they do right in 2020 that they've not been able to replicate in the subsequent years up to now? So once it is September, we start moving out, just in anticipation of this unwanted visitor.
It's just, I'm just curious, because on your dam, I think it was constructed the late 70s into the 80s. So this has been almost more than 40 years.
Yeah.
And of course, it's part of our hydroelectric power generating dams and also provides water. Is there an explanation? You've made a strong point, which I'll come to you, Mr. Smith. It's made a good point, saying it's more like this is a necessary evil they have to live with at the end of the day. And we're going to come to that as well, because you mentioned the issue of Venice and even Netherlands sitting on water. Is the government explaining, we're going to talk with them, but what are they telling you is responsible for why they are doing what they are doing?
Well, the explanation is that, you know, we have the impact of climate change worldwide. So the rainfall pattern changes. And we can see the impact with extremes of weathers. Like this year, we had the drought starting from July as against the August break. So it tells you, you need to change your style, your strategy in your proactive measures to controlling flood. So the government is telling us that 52 tributaries, yes, we know it is a given. But Oyan Dam is the singular point source of excessive volume. Look at what I just said. If you maintain 18, 20, the communities are resilient with the little measures in place. But when you exceed 21, like last year, they were doing 22 from 1st till 13th of October. Just 14th and 15th, they did 29.3. That was what submerged the whole communities last year, only 2 days. If 2 days of 29.3 could submerge the communities last year before they returned to 22.4, this year they did 7 days of 30 point something, about 30.3. For 7 days. It means if not for the internal drainage, right now we won't be able to discharge this water in the next 6 weeks. But if you look around, you will notice there's gradual, the water is receding because I took the long bridge. And I noticed from the other side of Ogun River, that is to the right of the Long Bridge, the water is receding. It tells you it is being drained, despite the surge. And we were even at Lagos Island because they were giving excuses of the tidal lock. But I was at Lagos Island and I made sure that I shoot the video yesterday, right close to the upper of Lagos Palace. We looked at the piers carrying the bridge, and we looked at it and said, come on. The water had subsided. You could see the shells aggregating around the piers carrying the bridge. So if you tell me there's a rise in the tide in the lagoon, that is why it can.
So it has little to do with the rising water level, but more to do with the release of
with the release, yes.
water.
Let me take it back to Mr. Afolabi. One of the things that crosses my mind, and the reason why we brought you gentlemen is you're the ones involved. I mean, the affected people, community, and all of that. So I want to contextualize as much as possible so that it's clear what we're doing here. Talk to us about the integrity of this building, because I'm imagining that you built a house and this is what your building is subjected to every other year. How long will it last?
Only experts can talk about that. But physically, I mean,
from what you're seeing.
In my estate, what I'm still saying that it's only experts that they can do assessment, scientific assessment, and tell us whether the integrity is threatened or not.
But you worried?
Are you worried?
Yeah.
Because of course we are worried because the houses are not designed to float on water. So if we have this kind of water every year, even for a week, it's a threat, it's a danger. But I cannot say as a layman to just say that this house is threatened or not.
But are you noticing anything? Maybe Mr. Smith, you're also weighing on this. Are you noticing anything as far as structural integrities? I know you're not the expert. I'm just telling you, because sometimes you're living in a building, you can see for yourself without maybe being able to interpret what you're seeing. But these are your observations.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, that looking at it physically, no sign, no visible sign from our side. But if this persists, it's definitely a threat.
But Mr. Smith, do you have any alternative views?
As a civil engineer, I will tell you, if you can put houses on water, bridges on water, flood, if you have a proper foundation, might not really affect your building, maybe settlement, depending on what you put in place in your foundation. But the major thing is the collateral damage yearly. The communities, we can't even face the people. We are community leaders. We can't face them. Imagine people you've given assurance. It got to a stage we were giving them assurance. They were all happy. When Dr. Ashiru said he is tackling his priority is safety of lives and property, the communities were agog. They said for the first time we've seen people that a person that is on that seat that is ready to do the work. And he said he's doing preemptive discharge, which is super, which is part of what we recommended to the Minister of Water Resources. But with this collateral damage, after we've assured people that nothing will happen this year, that it wouldn't be more than ankle length, and now it has gotten to waist and even chest, and they are looking, imagine an elderly man crying out to me, that Engineer Smith, the other day where you met me in front of my gate, that you were giving me assurance that government said this year will be different. Look at my property now. He was shedding tears. He said, I have to move my family out. Last Saturday, I was in the communities. I came back, I was very sad. Even we were having a joint get-together in my estate, but my mood, I just could not comprehend. I had to retract from the venue because I could not look into the eyes of the people who were giving assurance that the government had done this. And it even made the whole work of Ogun State government look like they did nothing, because people now started saying, what happened to all the drainage? I said the capacity from the Ogun River was enormous. It was beyond what the drainage canal that discharges at Ikorodu could take. So that is why it spilled over. They said, but you gave us assurance. I said, yes, but I'm not God. But they said it was based on what government said, because after God, it is government.
We do empathize with you, Mr. Smith, and some of the things that you have said only leaves little to the imagination, and some of which we're reading on the pages of newspaper about how your residents are putting up in hotels, and those also come at a great cost. And businesses, I imagine this has an impact on businesses as well. But let's manage our time. The intervention provided by the federal government, which is the dredging of the Ogun River, do you see it as an enduring solution to put a lasting end to this yearly flooding occurrence as a result of the release of water?
It is part of the structural solution that could solve it. Right?
Not the silver bullet.
Not the silver bullet. Because even they said it will be done in phases up till now. Imagine the government had flagged off since 13th of September. The contractor is yet to move to site. Imagine if he had moved to site since. And we're saying, come, let us speak and tell you some of the critical areas you must ensure you do. We've not seen him. You call him, he doesn't pick. You call the project engineer, he doesn't pick. Should we start calling Dr. Ashiru to come and do the job when he has a project engineer? These are issues. And look at the mess now with the communities. I couldn't look into their faces. The dredging is part of it. It will create capacity for Ogun River to discharge into the lagoon. One, they need to put at the low-lying areas, which is in this area segment of the Ogun River, they need to put in place dikes. That is shoreline protection, embankments on the shoreline, so that you'll be able to channel the water downstream without overflowing its bank. You need to put that in place as part of the structural measures. The Ogun State government, we are begging, let them heed the promise that His Excellency gave us last year, that is coming to raise the road. Notice when the flood were coming, it was contained on the other side. But it was not until the 30 million release that it overflooded the road. Imagine if the level of that road was raised. It wouldn't cross to the other side. Imagine if that was transferred into the communities.
I just want to find out, when people move in, are they aware of what they are moving into? I mean, the average person who is coming to maybe build or rent, because this is like reality that the people have to face every other year. Are they aware? Or some people move in and they are shocked?
Most people moved in and were shocked, and that includes myself. We're not really aware of this threat as at the time we were moving in.
But that's surprising, because as journalists, we've been covering the impact of the water release on communities in Isheri for years. So it would be important to ask this question of residents, that when they're purchasing property, when they're seeking accommodation for rental use, do they make the necessary inquiries about these communities, particularly the flood challenge? Do they choose not to even pick this as a choice of residents in the first place?
Yeah, the way I would put it is that, we have a number of service estates here, and we are real estate developers. And they use their brand name to really deceive or entice a lot of people.
Without giving you the full picture.
Without giving the full picture. And the enthusiasm with which they market their product, their brand name of where they are coming from, makes it easy for most of us to want to buy in. When you look at my estate, just for example, a paved road of about 1.5 kilometers was done fast, and everybody was using the road. Up to now, the road is still working. But what was hidden from us is, what kind of area is this? Is it waterlogged? Nobody had that information. Because at least we have people that were living here. We have people that came from anywhere. They just found out that, oh, this brand name is a good brand name, then we can rely on them. Although later, after moving in, we also start questioning the integrity of some of the real estate developers, including our own. And one thing that is very glaring is that real estate development in Nigeria is not regulated. They operate freely. They can go away with murder. And that is what is really happening now.
We're totally out of time, Bukola.
Well, if you had the opportunity of having an engagement with the governor now, governor of Ogun State or governor of Lagos State, because it impacts both states, what would you be presenting as enduring solutions? Because you said the dredging of the Ogun River is part of it, not the entire thing.
Yes. We're looking at them putting up the roads. It will serve as embankment. We're looking at
raising the level of the road.
Yes, raising the elevation of the road. One solution. We're looking at them putting on retention ponds. That is secondary downstream Oyan Dam, which is on the Ogun River, to impound water and release gently down to control the flood. Peradventure, such happens in future. We're also looking at the government put at the dredging, critical point, the outcrop, which is at Isheri, is the Isheri Kara axis. That outcrop of about 3.5 meters, which constrict flow, should be dredged. If that is also, if there's emphasis on that, it will go another long way. Then we're also looking at the government, apart from the embankment, put in embankment, and then there's a drainage master plan. Because we're on a floodplain, put a drainage master plan in place, complete the second leg of the channelization to Ikorodu.
All right. We must anchor at this point because we're moving to the next level of the conversation, which is an interaction with the state government. But you have 20 seconds, sir, to share your last one.
First, I mean, we need to go back to the purpose, the objective of the dam. It's supposed to generate electricity, consume 1.1 million cubic meters within a second or whatever. That is not done. It's supposed to provide potable water. All of us here live on boreholes. They said they use it for irrigation. I don't know how many farms we have around this area that need that volume of water for irrigation. Then you find out that the drainage and the canal about a kilometer to my estate is so narrow that when they're here dredging 10 kilometers, when you see the volume and spread of this water, will dredging of 10 kilometers really satisfy anything? Are they widening the canals? Are they widening the river to take more volume? Because 10 kilometers, how do you quantify it? What volume does it contain?
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Again, we empathize with you on this challenge that you and members of your community are currently going through, and we hope that there is an enduring solution to this in the short term rather than in the long term. So we'd like to thank you very much, Mr. Olanrewaju Smith. Thank you so much for your time, and Mr. Yemi Afolabi, chairpersons of the Meridian Park Estate and OPIC Estate here in Lagos. The Sherry communities in Lagos. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
You're still with the Morning Brief on Channels Television. Up next, we're continuing this conversation on the environment. This time, we'll be speaking with the Commissioner for Environment in Ogun State. So stay with us. We'll be right back.